ladies and gentlemen, our Commissioner of Agriculture, Steve Troxler.
Jimmy, thank you, and thank all of you for the opportunity to be here this morning. It's actually good to be back in Raleigh. I was in Des Moines, Iowa for the national meeting, and I got to thinking between the Mountain State Fair and the national meeting and commitments and the state fair, I got to live out of a motel room for half of my life for 2 months. And I think anybody that knows me knows that I had really rather be on my farm in Brown Summit, but this is the time of year that duty calls, and I'm very proud to do it. I recently, in fact yesterday, have been in eastern North Carolina and northeastern North Carolina, and it's a much different year there this year. Last year, the end of August, 1st of September, I was on a helicopter looking at the damage from Irene and the previous damage from the drought. And people actually have smiles on their faces this year. They're going to have good crop yields and commodity prices are good. So it makes you feel good as commissioner when people in the agricultural world feel good about what they're doing. And I do think, from my perspective, looking at the future, I think people in agriculture should be smiling. I look at the projections for food demand in the future, and it's almost daunting, the statistics that I see. Some of the organizations are saying by the year 2030, we've got to produce 50% more food in the world to feed a hungry population, and then going out to year 2050, they're saying it's going to be 75, 80, maybe even 100% more food. And what that says is there's a huge demand for agricultural products, and that demand, I hope, is going to keep a smile on our farmers' faces. And we all know that we're going to be putting up with the weather. I mean, year after year as a farmer, I know it's always going to be too wet, it's going to be too dry, it's going to be too cold, and it's going to be too hot. That's a constant. So we know we're going to deal with that. But we also know that government policy is going to have a huge say in everything that's done in agriculture. And Jimmy, I just want to thank you and the Grange for your leadership on legislative issues. That, you know, I feel like we've made so much progress in the last 2 years, especially in the issue that the Grange took such a strong lead on with ETJs and annexation of farmland. I don't know of anything that will keep farmers farming more than this one landmark piece of legislation, and I thank all of you for the hard work that you put behind that. As we move forward, there are going to be other types of things that we're going to need to do legislatively here in the state and at the national level to ensure that we can meet this worldwide demand. And the thing that I think we all have to realize is we just went through redistricting in North Carolina. And there was a lot of writing about it, you know, about how there was gerrymandering here and it had been done in the past, but that's not the point for those of us in agriculture. What has happened with redistricting is we lost representation in rural North Carolina. Guess where we farm in rural North Carolina? I've been told that east of 95, we actually lost 5 House members that represent those areas. And the areas that I was standing in yesterday and the day before, you have to lump 4 and 5 counties together to get one representative or one senator. And here in Raleigh, you know, there are multiple senators, multiple representatives. So that shift tells us that the way we're going to get things done is we've got to stand together. And we've got to speak with one voice, and that voice has got to be about agriculture and agribusiness in the state. And we've got to do a lot better job of educating these urban legislators that maybe don't pay attention to agriculture. And we can't say that this state is an agricultural state enough. We can't put that number of $72 billion of economic impact out there enough to these legislators so that they understand this. And the truth of the matter is, the city folks are the ones that need us more, that need these good policies for agriculture than rural people. We can feed ourselves in rural North Carolina, but our urban populations are dependent on us, and we've got to get that message across. And what I found out in politics is that politics is normally reactionary. It's not visionary. If I go to the legislature and I say, now, you know, this is what I believe we need to do, the first thing I'm going to hear is, well, you know what the budget's like this year. You know, we can look at that next year. and then we'll look at it the next year and the next year. But some of these things that we need done need to be done now. And one of the things that's going to get us to the point that we can meet this food demand is agricultural research. And we've been through the discussions about agricultural research stations and agricultural research before. And once again, the Grange stood strong to make sure that we kept this research station system in place and that we continue to lead the nation in agricultural research. That's what we've got to continue to do. But that's not an easy sale. People are normally tied up with today. You know, they live in today's budget, they live for today, and it's hard to get people to be visionary. My state vet says that the only time that you get things done in government is when there's bodies in the street. We can't afford to wait until the demand has exceeded supply for food to react to the things that we need to do. So we've got to be visionary in the way that we approach agriculture and agribusiness in North Carolina. And if we do, then there's going to come a time in the not too distant future that I can stand here and talk about $100 billion industry in this state and how much it's grown. And the good news is during this recession, we actually grew agriculture and agribusiness in North Carolina by about 6%. There's very few other industries that can say that. But it just proves that, you know, that we can weather the storms and we can move forward and we're going to move into the future. Jimmy mentioned that I had just returned from Des Moines, Iowa, from the national meeting, and they're not as fortunate out there as we are. Of course, you've read about the droughts and the things that are happening out there, and they are to an extent. But think about where we would be with that drought if we were talking about an average yield of 100 bushels of corn like we were 20 years ago, instead of an average yield of 180 to 200 bushels like we are now. So yes, there is a problem out there, but if this same problem had happened before the advancement in technology and the things that we do, we would be in a much, much worse situation than what we are today. So that, you know, that just kind of underscores what I'm saying about agricultural research and the things that we can do. I came back from that national meeting more convinced than ever about the future for agriculture. When I saw the technology that is going to be available, probably within 3 to 4 or 5 years, it's absolutely amazing, and it's about efficiency, and it's about you know, being able to not control some of the variables that we have, but to deal with variables in a much better way, and that is amazing. And the good news is the agribusiness people that are partners across this country share my vision for the future. They're investing billions and billions and billions of dollars in research right now for technology and things that we're going to need to meet this demand, and I believe we can do it. So, you know, I feel really exhilarated about the things that are going on right now, and I almost feel like we're going through another agricultural revolution, so to speak. I think we're on the cusp of some breakthroughs that will be absolutely amazing if you think about even 10 years ago. So, you know, all of this is so exciting to be, and to be able to be the commissioner in a time like this is such an honor. We're going to deal during my term as president of the National Association with some national issues also. And I thank them for kind of dropping all of this that it looks like in my lap at one time, but the number one thing is we don't have a farm bill. We are urging Congress to, as quickly as they can, sit down to vote on a farm bill and pass it. There's so many things that will be negative for agriculture, even if we have an extension of the current farm bill, because there's so many things that even an extension won't take forward. As we sit here today, there are no disaster programs anywhere because they have expired. So without a new farm bill, we don't have any disaster programs. The other thing is what we are looking for out of a new farm bill is the ability to manage risk. And you know about insurance, and I'm a firm believer that if we have a way to manage risk up front, then disaster programs are not needed. If you can, you know, be a sharp enough manager to figure out what the risks are, cover your risk, and manage your capital in the right way, you can work your way through even the worst situations. And we've seen that many times here in North Carolina. But if we're not going to have direct payments, which all of us pretty much understand are going away, then managing risk has got to be the #1 priority, and we need a farm bill to be able to do that. So that's one of the first priorities that we're going to move forward with. The other thing that we're finally agreed on after 18 months was a recommendation to Congress on guest worker reform so that we can have a reliable guest worker program that works and that we have a supply of legal agricultural workers in the United States. You know how contentious this has been in the Congress and the Senate, and it's just as contentious when you set 50 representatives down from 50 states, and there are different political parties, and there are 13 of us that are elected, but there are also the rest of them are appointed by governors. So when you start talking about contentious issues, the ones of us that are elected, we can say, okay, we know what we want to do, we're ready to vote, but then everybody else has to go check with the chief of staff or the governor. So it's taken us 18 months to get to the point that we could agree on something that we could recommend to Congress, and I'm so proud that we finally got that done. It was not easy, but we do now have a resolution on it and a plan to propose to Congress. The other thing that's going to happen is we're going to implement the Food Safety Modernization Act that was passed, I guess, over a year ago by Congress, and we've been waiting on the fresh fruit and vegetable rules to come from FDA, and they're not out yet. But what I know from being in the process of helping write the legislation and now being in the process of trying to get these rules out, that there is going to be an impact on our fresh fruit and vegetable producers. And I'll just give you an example. You heard about the produce recall that involved the cantaloupes here in North Carolina. And, you know, there was a lot of media about it, and there was a lot of confusion about it. But when you got right down to it, there was the recall. The person that grew the cantaloupes and packed the cantaloupes did not break a law, did not break a rule, did not break a regulation. The reason being there are none. And it's going to be a shock to people that have never been in any type of regulation to go into a regulated environment. And we went through this in a way when we brought HACCP into the meat inspection program back several years ago. But even then, meat inspection, there was meat inspection, and it was somewhat regulated, and we're going to go from nothing to regulation, and it's going to be difficult. I have proposed to the FDA that the states have the ability to go in and do pre-assessments and pre-inspections to educate people. I'm a firm believer in educate first, and in most cases, if you educate people about what the rules and regulations are and help them get up to speed, then they're going to come into compliance very quickly. The FDA has always had the attitude that you don't do that. You go into the establishment, and if they're doing something wrong, you either close them down or you fine them, and then you tell them, well, when you get ready to come back in business and you've got everything done, we'll come back in again and we'll fine you again. But that's not the way to do business, and that's what I'm preaching to FDA, and I think maybe that they are going to bite on that, and there's a good possibility that North Carolina may become a pilot program for implementation. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to do that, and especially with North Carolina. Me being the president of this national association is a very big honor for me. I want everybody to remember that I'm a farmer from Brown Summit, North Carolina, and that is a railroad crossing, is what it is. And we did one time, we had a general store, and even back in the 1800s, we had a saloon. But right now, we're basically a railroad crossing that Greensboro has found, and it's a fast-growing situation. So this is a great honor for me, but it's an honor for North Carolina too, to be able to do this and to bring some North Carolina flavor to leadership in a national way. I think the last time that we had a national president was about 1978. And of course, it was Jim Graham at that time. And it's going to give me the ability to bring all of these 50 secretaries and commissioners and appointees to North Carolina and get to brag a little bit. And I love to brag on our agriculture here in North Carolina and the things that we do. And even more to just brag about the state of North Carolina and what a great place it is from the mountains to the coast. So I'm going to be able to do this. I was able to bring the Southern Commissioners in 2 years ago when Jimmy was able to attend the event at my farm, and this one's going to be held in Asheville in conjunction with the Mountain State Fair. So we've got a lot to do. It's going to be a busy year. There's no question about it. But we're going to move the ball forward, and we're going to get to that $100 billion level. And what I'm telling legislators and political people are, you know, if you're smart, you play to your strength, especially when times aren't so good. Well, what's the strength in North Carolina? It's agriculture and agribusiness. So if you will help us with some of these regulatory reforms and turn us loose and unleash us and let us do what we do best, and if you will just help us with the agricultural research, and you will give the Department of Agriculture the ability to do our job and do it well, then, you know, we're going to grow this state, and we're going to grow it out of recession, and we're going to move it forward. The one thing I know, we spent a lot of money bringing industries into North Carolina. Sometimes they stay a while, and then they're gone. But all we have to do is make a small investment in agriculture and agribusiness. We've been here since the beginning of this state. We're going to be here at the end of this state. And between those two, if you help us be successful, this will remain to be the great state that we've always seen. We can't continue to lose our agricultural base that we have seen in the past. I concentrated on looking at how much land we had lost in agriculture the past 10 years with the trust fund. But then I got to looking further back, and what we discovered was between the year 1970 and the year 2010, we lost 6.6 million acres of farmland in North Carolina. Now, if I were standing here today and I started doing the computing on what's an acre of cotton worth now, what's an acre of corn worth, what's an acre of soybeans, wheat, tobacco, you just keep going right down the list, and you spread that over that 6.6 million acres we've lost, this state's economy would be in really good shape. So we can't afford to do that, and we've got to focus on this industry, and we've got to focus on what's going to make it successful in the future. And that's going to be my legislative basis for the next several years. And I know the Grange will be right there with us, and we do have to stand together. When there's 2% of you to begin with that are in production agriculture, and the other 98% are the customers, you know, you've got to educate the customers, and you've also got to stand together to get that message across, and that we will do.